The first sign wasn't light. It was silence. Over the twin moons of Varela Prime, the communications grid, a lattice of quantum-linked relays that had never failed in 1,000 cycles, went dark. Entire sectors of the Dominion's border network blinked out, as if smothered by an unseen hand. Traders vanished. Patrols stopped reporting. Even the navigational buoys along the Perseid expanse began transmitting static. Admiral Keltharin of the Virulon High Fleet stood before the hololith, its flickering projections casting cold shadows over his scaled features. His officers whispered of ancient myths, of the Iron Ghosts, a race said to have burned half the spiral arm before vanishing beyond the galactic rim. He had dismissed such superstition once. "Not anymore. Report," Keltharin demanded. His voice was low, resonant, the tone of one who expected obedience even from gods. "Admiral," said his second, Commander Vera, her blue crest dimming in apprehension, "our long-range sensors caught an anomaly entering the Perseid expanse. The signal isn't warp-based. It's primitive, but the energy readings are beyond anything we've cataloged." Keltharin frowned. "Primitive yet powerful?" "Yes, sir." She hesitated. "Like a hammer built to crack suns." The Admiral's gaze shifted to the hololith. A single grainy image hung there, an object eclipsing starlight, shaped not like any known Dominion vessel. It was angular, brutal, metallic, and behind it, a formation, 1,000 more, marching through space in disciplined silence. The humans had returned. They came without warning, without prelude. The Virulon Dominion had ruled for 3,000 years. In that time, no force had dared challenge its supremacy, but the arrival of the Terran Armada was not an invasion. It was revelation. From the outer colonies to the Virulon core, the same story spread like wildfire. The stars themselves were dimming beneath the shadow of vast black ships, human ships. Their hulls bore no sigils, no banners, no transmissions of peace or war. Only a cold, ancient code that predated the Dominion itself. Humanity returns. "Stand aside." Aboard the flagship USDF Atlas, Admiral Renee Calder stood before her bridge's observation window. The stars burned faint and distant beyond the tinted armor glass, their light swallowed by the Armada's sheer scale. 200 dreadnoughts, 6,000 cruisers, 1,000,000 strike craft, all forged in the darkness of Saul's reclaimed cradle. Beside her stood Captain Marcus Hale, his jaw tight, his uniform crisp beneath the soft blue glow of the console lights. "They'll think we're a myth," he said, his tone caught between pride and dread. Calder's eyes never left the horizon of stars. "That's the point." The hum of the Atlas's reactors filled the silence, a deep, rhythmic pulse like the heartbeat of an ancient beast. Every soul aboard could feel it, thrumming through the deck plates, resonating with something older than fear. "How long has it been?" Hale asked quietly. Calder answered without looking at him. 962 years since the fall of Earth. 800 since the last signal. The galaxy forgot us." She turned finally, and the faint reflection of the burning star lines painted her face in firelight. Now they remember. Varela Prime's skies tore open. The human armada descended not in fire, but in precision. Orbital drop pods streaked through the atmosphere, thousands of them, each the size of a city block. Their contrails carved scars of plasma across the heavens. Ground defenses activated automatically, firing bursts of antimatter shells and gravitational torpedoes into the stratosphere. None reached their targets. Human countermeasures shimmered, pale, angular distortions in the air, as invisible drones intercepted each projectile mid-flight. From the surface, it looked like the gods themselves had raised shields across the stars. On the Dominion Command Citadel, Keltharin watched the sky blaze. "What kind of creatures wield such precision in annihilation?" he muttered. Vera's voice trembled. "Sir, the transmission. It's repeating." The hololith flared, and the ancient signal echoed once more, crisp now, undeniable, spoken in a language the Dominion archives barely remembered. "We come not for conquest. We come for what was taken. Humanity endures. Admiral Calder's fleet spread in formation above the planet, blocking its suns. Below, the Dominion armies gathered, vast legions of crystalline armor and bioengineered monstrosities bred for war. Calder had read the intelligence reports. She knew the Virelans considered themselves the apex of civilization. Let them think so a little longer. "Are we certain this is the world?" Captain Hale asked. Calder nodded. "The archives are clear. This is where they buried the cradle beacon." "The beacon?" Hale frowned. "You mean the thing they stole from Earth before?" "Yes." Her gaze hardened. "Before they bombed it." A silence fell between them that no sound could fill. Down below, on the scorched plains of Virela, the first human boots touched alien soil in nearly a millennium. The soldiers of the 5th Terran Expeditionary Force moved like phantoms, armor matte black, their visors reflecting the blue suns above. They said nothing as they marched across the ash dunes, their rifles humming with plasma charge. The air was thin, acrid, laced with static from orbital interference. Lieutenant Sarah Reed checked her visor feed. "Command, this is Ground Alpha. We have visual on the target structure. Triangular obelisk, roughly 2 clicks east. Energy readings are off the charts." "Copy that, Alpha," came Calder's voice from orbit. "Retrieve the beacon core. Do not engage unless fired upon." Reed hesitated before answering. "Ma'am, with respect, if these things see us, they're going to fire." Calder's voice softened. "Then remind them what humans do when fired upon." The first battle between the Dominion and the Returned was over in hours. When it ended, the plains of Virela glowed like glass. The obelisk shattered, releasing a pulse of light so vast that even the orbiting ships dimmed their sensors. Within its broken heart lay the beacon, an ancient spherical relic of Terran origin, pulsing faintly like a heartbeat rediscovered. As her Marines secured it, Lieutenant Reed looked skyward. The human fleet hung motionless against the void, black silhouettes against the burning horizon, she whispered. Almost to herself, "They thought we were gone." Above, Admiral Calder watched the retrieval data stream across her console. One relic recovered, one world burning, one myth shattered. Captain Hale approached quietly. "And now, Admiral? What do we tell them?" Calder's eyes narrowed as she looked upon the thousands of signals lighting up across her tactical map. The Dominion's response fleets mobilizing from every sector. She smiled, a slow, cold smile. "Tell them the Age of Gods is over." The storm began 12 hours after the fall of Virela Prime. To the Dominion, the battle was supposed to be impossible. No world had ever fallen in less than a cycle, not since the Age of Ascension. Yet now their homeworld smoldered, its upper atmosphere lit with ghostly auroras, remnants of nuclear dust mingling with ionized air. The skies whispered in the static of their broken networks, and every transmission carried a name they'd sworn belonged to legend. Humans. Admiral Cale Theron watched from the bridge of his personal dreadnought. Seraph's will, as the surviving fleets regrouped above the outer moon. Thousands of ships, fractured, disordered, spun in desperate formations. They were a people built on arrogance, now staring into the eyes of a myth they once mocked. "The Virela home system is lost," his second, Commander Vera, said quietly. "Our council demands retribution." "Retribution?" Cale Theron's voice was a growl. "You cannot strike a storm, Vera. You can only endure it." But even as he spoke, the Dominion fleets were already mobilizing. Their council had declared total war. Across 20 systems, forges awakened and breeding vats swelled with the creation of new war forms. Ancient weapons, ones they had vowed never to use again, were drawn from vaults of black glass. And still, the stars dimmed. Because the humans were still coming. From orbit above the shattered world, Admiral Renee Calder observed the Dominion's mobilization with surgical calm. The USDF Atlas and her fleet moved like a blade across the void, cutting through debris and dust. Her eyes lingered on the holographic display showing Virela's orbital graveyard, dozens of Dominion battleships drifting silently, their hulls cooling, their cores cold. Captain Marcus Hale stood at her side. "Recon reports show heavy activity in the adjacent systems, particularly Tyros and Vexen." Looks like they're building something. They're afraid, Calder murmured. Afraid? Hale frowned. They're arming 1,000 ships. She turned, the faint light from the stars painting her features in bronze shadow. Exactly. Fear makes empires reckless, her words hung in the still air. On the bridge, officers moved in quiet, efficient motion. Humanity's discipline born not from arrogance, but memory. Every one of them had grown up under the myth of the fall of Earth. The day the sky burned and humanity scattered like ash across the void. They were the descendants of the lost, carrying the burden of extinction as bloodline and creed. Down below, Lieutenant Sarah Reed oversaw the excavation of the beacon's inner chamber. The spherical relic floated within a containment field, humming softly. Its pulse matched the rhythm of a heartbeat, slow, deliberate, ancient. A voice crackled over her comms. Lieutenant, this is Atlas Command. Prepare for extraction. The Dominion is regrouping. Reed looked once more at the artifact. Understood, she replied. But Admiral, whatever this thing is, it's not just a beacon. Calder's voice answered, faint through the static. Explain. It's transmitting. Not a distress signal. A map. Reed stared at the glowing inscriptions crawling across its metallic surface, coordinates etched in a language she didn't recognize. Not human, not Dominion. Something older. Where does it lead? Calder asked. Reed hesitated. Home? The Dominion's counterstrike came without warning. One moment, the human fleet drifted in high orbit. The next, space itself erupted. Wormholes tore open in the darkness, vomiting forth armadas, sleek, curved ships that shimmered with plasma fields. The Dominion's finest warriors filled the void, their vessels bristling with energy cannons capable of slicing moons in half. They moved with elegant fury, every formation perfectly timed. Multiple contacts, Hale shouted. Hundreds, no, thousands of ships inbound. Shields to maximum, Calder ordered. All units hold formation. The bridge shook as the first barrage struck. Plasma arcs danced across the Atlas's hull, rippling through the electromagnetic field like lightning across a storm front. The ship's artificial gravity wavered. Sparks flared. Crew members braced as alarms screamed. Return fire, Calder commanded. Sector patterns, gridlock. Make them feel us, the fleet answered in kind. From the Atlas and her sister dreadnoughts, beams of focused particle light lashed out, each one a lance of annihilation. Entire Dominion squadrons disintegrated, their ships turned to molten shards. The vacuum glittered with wreckage, like burning constellations. But for every enemy destroyed, more emerged. The Dominion had unleashed their full strength, and the heavens trembled under the fury of two civilizations meeting across eternity. Vera stood beside Kale Theron aboard the Seraph's Will, watching the humans fight. They don't retreat, she whispered. Not even when outnumbered 100-1. Kale Theron's throat rumbled. They are not fighting for victory. They are fighting for memory. Memory? He turned his gaze toward the lead human vessel, the massive dreadnought with the insignia USDF Atlas carved across its hull. Once, long ago, our kind burned their homeworld. We thought we had ended them. We were wrong. The battle raged for hours. The void filled with fire and silence, an endless ballet of destruction. But gradually the Dominion began to falter. Their formations broke under the relentless human push. Calder's armada advanced, inch by inch, world by world, carving through millennia of empire as though tearing pages from history itself. Still, the cost was high. On the Atlas, casualty reports climbed into the thousands. Deck 12 burned. The outer reactors screamed from overload. Yet Calder stood unmoved, her eyes fixed on the holographic projection of the Dominion home sectors. Captain Hale approached, voice ragged. We can't sustain this. If we keep pushing, we'll break ourselves before they do. Calder's hand tightened on the console. Then we make it count. Lieutenant Reed's shuttle docked with the Atlas, the beacon secured in containment. As the chamber doors sealed behind her, she approached the Admiral with grim urgency. Admiral, the artifact, it's linked to something beyond this galaxy. If we activate it, it could, she hesitated, lowering her voice. It could call them, Calder's eyes narrowed. Them? The ones who made it. Whoever came before us. Maybe the reason we left. For the first time in the campaign, uncertainty flickered across Calder's face. She looked past Reed, out at the battle consuming the stars. Maybe it's time we stopped running from ghosts, she said. On the Dominion flagship, Cale Theron felt the shift before his sensors confirmed it. Space itself vibrated, an invisible tremor rippling through the void. All ships, human and Dominion alike, fell into brief silence as reality bent. A massive gravitational wave pulsed from Varella's surface, expanding outward in concentric rings. "The beacon!" Vera gasped. "It's activating!" Cale Theron's eyes widened. "What have they done?" On the Atlas, alarms screamed. Reed stumbled as the deck shook violently. The containment field around the beacon shattered, flooding the chamber with light. Holographic script filled the air, coordinates, warnings, and a single repeating phrase in long-dead Terran code. "Return complete." "Signal received." Calder stared into the storm of light, her voice a whisper. "Dear God, what did we wake up?" The wave spread across the system. Stars flickered, subspace fractured, and from the darkness beyond the galactic rim, something answered, something old, something vast, something that remembered humanity's name. There are moments in the life of a galaxy when time itself seems to stop, when every star, every drifting ship, every soul, alien or human, feels the same single, deafening heartbeat. This was one of those moments. The pulse from Varela Prime had reached every corner of the Dominion's empire. It silenced their networks, blinded their fleets, and turned their gods to memory. But it did more than that. It reached beyond the rim of known space, into the cold gulf where even light had forgotten to travel, and something had answered. On the bridge of the USDF Atlas, Admiral Renee Calder stood motionless before the viewport, her reflection lit by a swirling aurora of energy that surrounded the planet below. Her officers worked frantically at their stations, scanning, recalibrating, trying to make sense of readings that defied physics. Captain Marcus Hale's voice trembled despite years of war. "We're picking up a mass displacement outside the Perseid expanse. Size unknown. Gravitational field is rewriting local constants. Ma'am, it's bigger than a system." Calder didn't blink. "Get me a visual." The holographic display flickered, then bloomed with a haze of static before resolving into shape, a shadow emerging from the edge of the void. It wasn't a ship. It wasn't even a fleet. It was a structure so colossal it blotted entire constellations. Its geometry pulsed in rhythmic patterns of light, blue, then crimson, then something that hurt to look at. Lieutenant Sarah Reed stared, voice low. What are we looking at?" Calder's tone was calm, almost reverent. "Home." The alien command fleet, what remained of it, watched the same horror unfold. On the Seraph's will, Admiral Cale Theron's scales dulled to gray under the flickering lights. His officers whispered prayers, invoking names of ancient gods their kind had abandoned long ago. He silenced them with a raised hand. "That," he said slowly, "is no human weapon." Vera swallowed. "Then what is it, sir?" Cale Theron turned to face her, his eyes haunted. "It is the thing that made them." The beacon's energy began linking with the human ships automatically. Streams of data cascaded through their networks, star maps, DNA codices, archives of extinct civilizations. The Terran Armada's systems responded like living things awakening from long sleep. Every hull hummed, every reactor synchronized to the beacon's pulse. Lieutenant Reed's voice filled the comms. "The artifact's signal is rewriting our core systems. It's like it recognizes us." Calder's jaw clenched. "Of course it does. The beacon wasn't built to guide us home. It is home. A fragment of the Founders." Hale looked at her sharply. "Founders?" She nodded, eyes distant. "Before Earth, before Sol, before the fall, we were not the first. The Founders seeded worlds. They built the first human genome as a weapon against extinction. And when they vanished, they left behind a call." Her gaze shifted to the planet below, where the beacon's light now reached the surface like golden rain. "A call for us to come back. The Dominion fleet, desperate and broken, launched one final assault. From every surviving ship came plasma fire, dark matter torpedoes, and anti-spatial lances that could crack moons. They hurled their fury at the Atlas and her fleet, knowing it was futile but unwilling to surrender. Kael Theron's voice thundered through the Dominion comnet. "If gods must die, let them die, remembering who killed them." The sky became a storm of light. Calder's fleet met it head-on. Missiles screamed across the void, interceptors danced between beams, and dreadnoughts traded fire until their cores burned white-hot. The void itself shook with their fury. But amidst the chaos, the beacon pulsed again, once, twice, then released a wave of energy that silenced the guns. The entire battlefield froze as though trapped in amber. Beams hung motionless in mid-space. Ships stopped tumbling. Even time seemed to hold its breath, and then a voice, not over comms, not through air or sound. It was everywhere, inside every mind, human and Dominion alike. Calm, vast, and filled with an ancient sorrow. "Children of Earth, children of Varela, you war over embers, but the fire is ours." Calder gripped the console, her knuckles white. "Who are you?" The voice answered with silence, and then images. Earth before the fall, oceans reflecting the light of orbital citadels, vast, luminous beings walking among humanity, shaping their destiny, and then the burning. The Founders' last act, hiding humanity among the stars, scattering them before the war that devoured their creators. "You were meant to remember," the voice said. "Instead, you became us." Reed fell to her knees, clutching her head. "It's inside my mind. It's showing us." Captain Hale shouted, "Admiral, if this thing can rewrite space-time, it can unmake us." "Not if we shut it down," Calder said, her eyes flaring with resolve. "Target the beacon core. Prepare to fire." Kael Theron heard the same voice, saw the same visions. He understood. The humans weren't demons or saviors. They were reflections, the inheritors of gods long gone. And if the beacon awakened fully, it would remake the galaxy in their image, erasing everything else. He made his choice. "Signal the human flagship," he ordered. Vera hesitated. "Sir, now." On the Atlas, Hale turned. "Incoming transmission from Kael Theron himself." Calder narrowed her eyes. "Put him through." The alien's image flickered onto the bridge. Tall, regal, his scaled face illuminated by the dying light of his ship's reactors. His voice was raw but steady. "You cannot stop it alone," he said. Calder regarded him with cold suspicion. "You think I trust the Butcher of Earth?" Kael Theron's gaze lowered. "I am not my ancestors. If the beacon completes its cycle, none of us will remain. Not you, not me, not the stars." The silence stretched between them, filled with the ghosts of 1,000 years. Finally, Calder nodded. "Then we end it together." Human and Dominion ships formed a new formation, chaotic, improvised, beautiful. Together, they turned their weapons toward the planet below, aiming not at each other but at the glowing heart of the beacon. Reed's voice shook as she relayed the coordinates. "If we overload it at once, the energy will collapse inward. It'll take everything with it." Calder smiled faintly. "Then let's make it worth it." "Admiral," Hale began. She placed a hand on his shoulder. "You once told me they'd think we were legends. Let's prove them right." The order came quietly, almost a whisper. Fire. 1,000 lances of light converged on Varela's surface. The beacon flared like a sun being born. The shockwave tore through the void, swallowing fleets, planets, everything. And for an instant, just one blinding instant, the galaxy saw the dawn of its own rebirth. When the light faded, there was silence. No Dominion fleets, no human armada, only the wreckage of legends drifting through the twilight of stars. Centuries later, explorers from distant civilizations found a single fragment of metal orbiting a dead sun. It bore an inscription in faded Terran script, etched deep into its surface. "We came not to conquer. We came to remember." And beneath it, a single name, Renee Calder. The historians called it myth, but the stars remembered the truth. Because sometimes legends do return, and when they do, the heavens tremble,